Welcome back to the show as we continue our conversation on the Gulf States Summit with American President Barack Obama. Joining me now from Tehran is Mohammad Marandi. He is a professor at the University of Tehran. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
So the summit has taken place and we have the United States reassuring its Gulf allies that it will defend them with military force if necessary, if they are threatened. What does the summit look like from Tehran?
My understanding is that they're not taking it seriously here. The real problem in the countries, in the Arab countries in the Persian Gulf region, is their internal situation, and that's something that Obama had said a few weeks ago in an interview. So the notion that there's some sort of external power that wishes or that may launch an attack on any of these countries is obviously nonsense. And the Americans know that, and so do the Saudis, among others. But there's also another important thing, and that is that countries like Oman have a very different policy towards recent regional issues, such as the Saudi aggression against Yemen. And therefore, even the Arab countries in the Persian Gulf are divided. Iraq, of course, is very close to Iran.
You know, just a moment ago, we talked with a Saudi journalist and analyst, and he said what a country like Saudi Arabia had hoped for from the summit was a stronger denunciation of Iran for what he said was its support of proxy forces in the region.
Well, I think that is a major problem that the Saudis have, that they fail to recognize peoples and nations. And it is basically because the Saudis cannot accept an independent Yemen. We have to remember that even the UN representative, the former UN representative to Yemen, after the Saudis launched the attack and after he resigned, he admitted that the different sides in Yemen were on the verge of an agreement when the Saudis began the war. So the Saudis were definitely trying to prevent the different groups in Yemen from coming together.
The other underlying message or concern that we heard out of these countries was the possibility of a nuclear deal between the United States and Iran involving other countries as well. The Saudi view is that Iran would be left with its own nuclear capability. It would be able to use all that research that it's amassed over the past few years. Do these nations have anything to fear from Iran?
Definitely not. I think it's becoming clear to the international community that the Iranian nuclear program has always been used as a tool by the Americans and their allies to weaken Iran. And there's never been any evidence whatsoever that Iran's nuclear program is anything but peaceful. The non-aligned movement, which constitutes 3/5 of the countries of the world, China and Russia have always said that Iran's nuclear program is peaceful and has always been peaceful. And the non-aligned movement have always supported Iran's stand. So it's, from the Iranian perspective, the problem really is that some of these Arab oil-rich regimes, they are promoting fear basically to retain power in their own countries, because many of them are family dictatorships. When they speak about proxies, they're talking about the people of Yemen who've been under fire, the people of Bahrain, which are under Saudi occupation, the people of Iraq, which have elected a government, and extremist Wahhabists that have the same ideology as Saudi Arabia are trying to overthrow the Iraqi government. And in Syria, too, the Saudis have been supporting al-Qaeda as they do in Yemen. So it's obvious that the extremism in this region, the destabilization of the region, comes from Saudi Arabia. Yet because of its enormous wealth and clout in the West, Western countries and the media and human rights organizations are silent.
And the other worry they expressed was that if there is a deal with Iran between the United States and these other countries, sanctions will be lifted. Iran would amass a great deal of wealth very quickly, and that money is going to enable Iran to buy weapons and threaten stability in the region.
Well, it isn't Iran that's bombing a neighboring country. It isn't Iran that's occupied Bahrain. Iran is cooperating with the legal and internationally recognized government in Syria and in Iraq. The problem really is that with or without enormous wealth, the Iranians are siding with popular forces in this region. And the Saudis fear exactly that very same issue. Saudi Arabia, the ruling family, even now, is divided among themselves because not only is the public not taken into consideration by the ruling family in the decision-making processes in the country, but now even the ruling family has been cast aside, and the new king has consolidated almost all the power to himself and his son, who is 29 years old. He's the Minister of the Defense. He's in charge of the nation's oil company, and he's running the war, as well as he's in charge of his father's office. So even the royal family now has been sidelined.
What do you make of the Saudi warnings that it would seek its own nuclear program if this deal goes through?
Iran has said repeatedly that it is even willing to help the Saudis have a peaceful nuclear program. Any country that has signed the NPT and that is a member of the International Atomic Energy Agency has the right to have a peaceful nuclear program, which includes the enrichment of uranium. Iran has no problem with that whatsoever. Of course, the Saudis do not have the infrastructure in general. The Saudis are very reliant on imports in almost every field. They have no high-tech industry. The Iranians send satellites into orbit. They have a very progressive industry with regards to high-tech, nanotechnology, stem cell research. The scientific culture in Iran is very much ahead of Saudi Arabia. But for Iran, if the Saudis are able to achieve peaceful nuclear energy, that's fine.
Speaking of cooperation between Iran and Saudi Arabia, what are the chances that these two powers, they are major countries, both of them in the Middle East, can get together to resolve some of the problems in that region right now? We see a lot of turmoil. We see what's going on in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Iraq. What are the chances of them getting together to solve this?
Well, this is a major problem, but if we look at recent history, the Iranians have repeatedly attempted to break the ice with the Saudis and have tried to strengthen relations between the two sides. During the previous administration, the then Iranian Foreign Minister, Dr. Salehi, went to Saudi Arabia, but the Saudis never reciprocated. And when the new administration of Dr. Rouhani came to power in Tehran, again the Iranians stressed that they want good relations with neighboring countries, but again the Saudis failed to reciprocate. So the Iranians have been trying very hard, but the problem for Iran is really one issue, and that is that the Saudis are exporting Wahhabism, and that is the same ideology of Boko Haram, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and ISIL. In Africa and Asia and across the world. And right now the Saudis in Yemen are supporting Al-Qaeda, they're supporting Al-Qaeda in Syria, and according to the US Vice President, they were among the countries alongside Turkey that helped create ISIL. From the Iranian perspective, that is the major problem that the region is facing, the export of extremism and the Saudi ideology of Wahhabism, which is even a threat to countries like China.
Dr. Mohammad Marandi, thanks for joining us, sir. And that's it for this edition of The Heat, but the conversation continues online. Join us on CCTV America's Facebook page to comment on this or any other show, or chat with us on Twitter at CCTV_America. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.